can you just talk us through like Gumroad, your story, and why you founded the business in the first place?
Yeah, so I started Gumroad 2011, 9 years ago. It was a weekend project. I wanted to sell this pencil icon that I designed in Photoshop to my audience on Twitter and Dribble. And there just was no real easy way for me to do that. And so I built Gumroad just over the course of a weekend, a really simple prototype. You could, create an account, sort of specify a product, specify a price, and then you got a little short link that you tweet out or whatever, and then, make some, people could see it, buy it, etc. Get a little receipt, get an email with a download. And it was really just for myself, just for me to sell that thing. And then over the course of the last 9 years, we've gone through a bunch of ups and downs. We were in San Francisco, raised a bunch of VC, and did that whole thing for a while, got to profitable. So now it's a sort of it's not really a startup. It's kind of like a business, just a software business that works. It's profitable forever. But yeah, that's kind of the gist. And before that, I was an early employee at Pinterest. For
people who are watching right now and who are thinking about financial security, maybe looking to have different revenue streams, how hard or how easy is it for someone who doesn't know how to code, who's never built their own website before? How easy is it to start making money online as a creator?
It's never been easier. I don't know if it's easy. I think it's simple. Like there are sort of a few things you have to do, right? You have to build an audience.
Okay.
You have to, build relationships with people. You have to tweet or share content. You have to be interesting. You have to have some skill that people sort of respect you for, what have you. So these are all sort of simple. But it can take years, it can take years to get to that level. But if you have those things, if you have a skill set that you want to teach people, let's say you're an amazing baker, for example, you can totally go from just baking stuff to making a living baking basically within a year, 2 years, really. Like you can build an audience, you can sell products, you can, sell cookbooks and recipes and do, I don't know, all sorts of stuff. And we've seen that over and over again where people will go from basically having nothing to making a full-time living selling digital products online, especially courses, ebooks, videos. And then nowadays with quarantine, we're not seeing as much of the in-person stuff, but before it was like a lot of events and workshops and stuff as well.
Interesting. So we've actually just had a question come through from a woman called Mama's Bear Cub on Instagram. And she's saying that she wants to start to develop that income online as her motivational speaking and blog. Like, what are the steps that people should take? Like, where do you start? If you want to be here now during COVID-19 quarantine and in 12 months' time you want to have some income coming in, what are the steps that you would take if you were kind of starting that journey from scratch again?
Putting out a lot of content, that's super, super, super important, right? So, and it also just makes you better. Like just producing a lot of content makes you more interesting. It will teach you what you don't know and you have to learn in order to teach people. So start sharing a lot of content and then put it everywhere. Put it wherever you can. So, even when I write a post still, I have a pretty large audience, mostly on Twitter. But, I'll spend like half a day every time I write a blog post saying, putting it on Hack the News, putting it on Reddit, putting it on, tweeting about it, sharing it with a bunch of friends and like just doing the work. Like it's not, I think a lot of people think that this happens organically, that you just like tweet and share and like you build an audience and then you can make like 6 figures a year. And it's a lot more strategic than that. Like it requires hard work to kind of like build an audience, DM people, reply to all your mentions, and hopefully you want to do it, right? Like these are things that hopefully people are like, I'm excited about engaging with my audience and teaching people. But once you do that, you spend a year or two building that audience, you'll end up with thousands of people that love your work, like respect you, basically want to give you money if you had a way to do that. And so the actual like sort of selling stuff, I think a lot of people do that too soon. It's really about like building an audience, building a community, being like an interesting person that people respect a lot. And then you can literally just say, hey, I would like to make money on this so I can spend more time doing this. There's nothing wrong with that. What would you pay for? Do you want me to do coaching? Do you want me to do workshops? Do you want me to do a video course? Do you want me to do an ebook? Like I had a friend who he had no social audience a year ago. Now he has like 26,000 Twitter followers and he's just started using Gumroad on Christmas. So literally 4 months ago yesterday. And to date, he's made $100,000 on Gumroad.
In 4 months, he's made $100K.
And this is from zero. Like, this isn't from like going from one platform to another. And he didn't even have any social media up until 1 year ago, I think February of last year. So like 14 months ago.
That's amazing. Wow.
He wrote a really great post on leaving Amazon to sort of go full-time on his own. That went viral on Medium. He gained like 10,000 followers from that. He wrote like a few more posts, and then he asked his audience, like, what do you want from me? And people said, I want, like, AWS is this crazy thing. I'd love to understand it. So he wrote a book with a friend, spent a day a week over like the course of a month or two writing this book. And, it's like 170 pages or something, sold it for like $30, $40, and made, 80 grand off of this book that he, spent 40, 50 hours. I mean, not easy, right? Like, that requires work. But the cool thing is he already had an audience. He already had, like, he was constantly, like, as he was writing the book, he was sharing stuff, getting feedback. It was an ongoing thing. And so, like, I would treat the blog like that, where the blog is almost like the ongoing research for this thing. And you can even tell people, like, by the way, like, this is all going to be part of this project I'm working on. It comes out in 3 months. And then guess what? Like, all the people that, followed you from through that journey are much more likely to buy your book. And then he did another video. He did a video course on how to build a Twitter audience. Spent, I don't know, it's like an hour and a half. He made $25,000 in a weekend, and like, guess what? This is like a forever audience, right? Like, he could do this
residual. Yeah.
Yeah. People think of it like, oh, it's a one-off thing, but it's really not. Like, we see people on Gumroad, every time he gains new audience members, like, people follow him on Twitter all the time. He gained 1,000 followers yesterday. Like, but guess what? Like, how many of those are going to go buy one of those two things? Like, a significant amount, we have a creator who does something similar. He makes $250,000 a month selling the same 4 products.
$250K a month? So he's making 2.5 mil, 3 mil a year?
He's making, I mean, it's his recent spike has gone up a lot in January. So, but since January, he's made around $250,000 a month.
Good for him.
That's just his Gumroad, selling ebooks and courses and stuff. And he's not the top creator. We have people that make a lot more than he's probably the top person who's so open. But we've had some
his revenue figures and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, we had someone who did a design templating system, made $800,000 in one day. Yeah, you can do well. You can do well if you have an audience that has disposable income and wants to support you. Again, those are the hard things. Like, then sitting down and doing 40, 50, 100, 200 hours of work, putting together a package for folks. That's not super daunting. That part becomes relatively easy. It's the building an audience, being really good. Like, he worked at Amazon for 10 years, so he has all this knowledge and insight
and the credibility and
right. He knows how to write, because at Amazon, all you do is freaking write memos all day long. So, like, you build up those skill sets. Same thing with me. Like, I wrote a Medium post, and it had, I don't know, 700,000 people, I think, read it. But it was about 8 years of my startup journey, right? So it's like, you can't write. No one can write that except for people like me who've actually gone through, which is also why it turns out like that's what people want. People want 8 years worth of experience packaged up into an ebook. That's literally what people are paying for. So I think people that try to skip that, I think, struggle, because they're always looking for, like, how do I, like, make money tomorrow?
Like a quick buck kind of thing. And that's
the problem is, if you do that 12 months in a row, you never do anything. But if you just spent those 12 months building an audience and just giving away content for free, then when you are ready to do that thing, then it's actually incredibly, shouldn't say easy, but simple. Like, it's the Gumroad logo, it's the G, right? With a 2 dots that kind of go in this thing. And the reason is, like, it's sort of the final step in the process, like making the amazing product, having the audience, connecting the dots. Like, that's something we can, I have a webinar on YouTube or something, and it's like an hour, and I go through every single Gumroad feature, because it's a simple thing. It doesn't take a ton. Setting up a Shopify store is easy. Like, Kylie Jenner makes $1 billion or whatever, right? But the Shopify store is the easy part. Like, building tens of millions of people that want her products and whatever she puts her name on, and curates and these sorts of things. That's what's really, really, really valuable, right? And there's no real shortcut to that. And that's what I love about it, is like, if someone's like, hey, can I have your audience? Even if I wanted to, I can't give it to somebody. It's not a fungible asset. You know, you have to build it yourself from scratch. No one can give you an audience.
And is that, so we've got a question here from Marianne, who said she's loving the examples, but she wants to know the how. So from what you've said, it sounds like what you need to do is create content, you need to build that audience and really the trust, which is what you're saying, 100%. And then ask them basically, what do I want to give you money for? So
yeah, be transparent about it, you know? Like, I think a lot of creators, like I talk to creators quite frequently in my job, and like a big one is like, they don't like talking about making money. It's like, it feels wrong or weird or like capitalistic or whatever. And it's like, well, the alternative is you don't make money, and then you have to like do ads or like sponsorships or like these things that you actually, why don't you sell your own products? Like, so you'd rather sell somebody else's products because it's uncomfortable to talk about, you know? And obviously I'm sort of simplifying it a little bit, but like your audience like would much rather support you if you are just sort of open and frank with them and like take them on the journey with you. I think like I tweet all the Gumroad numbers every month. Like, you know, we just crossed 10 million to creators in April, which is the first time we've ever done that. And guess what? Like tweets like that go viral. Like people want to support that kind of stuff. And guess what? Like that tweet probably alone got me 1,000 new followers, right? So like that, and people like it because they're learning. Like they're learning how to build. You know,
people who don't follow you on Twitter, basically Sahil tweeted out, I think it was this week, that Gumroad as a company for the first month paid out $10 million to creators in that 1 month. So obviously if you annualize that, we're talking over $100 million that people on your platform are taking home, which is super exciting. So let's pretend that, PepTalkHer, we have an audience across social, whatever. We have programming that we run. We've got the trust. People want to buy from us. What do we do next? Like, what is the tangible step once we've created the content, we've built the audience and the trust? What do we then do to start making that money?
Yeah, so I would say I would pick a product, right? So for example, a really great one would be like, okay, who is your audience? And I think a lot of people, they sort of think, okay, I have 100,000 people on Twitter. Like I'm going to have 100,000 customers. No.
Yeah.
Like that would be nice. Yeah. But well, you pick what subset of your audience you want to be your customers. And so like, for example, for PepTalkHer, it might be like, okay, there are a group of people that are like women that want to run sort of social media powered e-commerce businesses, you know, selling products on Shopify or Etsy or something like that. Right. And so it's like, okay, cool. How can we teach them how to do that? How can we teach them how to build an audience? How to get set up on Shopify, basically like run them through the entire experience. And you could do this with just blog posts and Instagram lives. Like you don't have to produce all this content. You can be recording all of this. And then once you have, maybe at the bottom of every single thing you do, you say, hey, by the way, we're going to release this as a video course or as like a course on Gumroad or another service. Sign up below and, you'll get an email. And it'll be $200, but if you do it in the first week, it'll be $100 or something like that, right? And then over time, you'll have literally thousands of people that literally are getting free content from you, like just tons of free value from you. And then when you're ready, and they're constantly being reminded, by the way, this thing is happening in 3 months, 4 months.
Because it's top of funnel, you're always there. Yeah.
Yeah, which is like sort of marketing 101, right? Which is like you have to repeat yourself. You have to say the same thing a lot. Saying it one time is not enough. People have lives, they're busy, that's just the way it is. And so you do that and then you send out this email blast that's like, hey, this thing that, by the way, you can get a lot of this content. It's already there. You don't have to pay for this if you don't want to. But if you want a really nicely packaged thing, you can run through it in 3 or 4 hours. It comes with XYZ thing. It comes with this exclusive content. We're going to do a webinar where everyone can join. Maybe everyone that buys this gets added to this Discord or this Slack community or what have you. Guaranteed you'll make, let's say 1,000 sales plus. Each sale is $100. That's $100,000, right? And that's how the math works. Like this is how people go from zero to $100,000 in 4 months. Like that's literally the playbook, right? And the cool thing is that I can talk about it because it's not secret. Like this is how you do it, and it's not bad. Like I could tell my entire audience, by the way, this is my plan, and they're like, cool. Let me know when I can give you $100. Yeah. I think sometimes in a retail model, people think it's like the business versus the consumer. And they're kind of like, the more the product, the better for the business and the worse but it's just not really like that. And really like the value of that course you could argue it's zero because you could all get that content for free, or you could argue it's like tens of thousands of dollars because the content really that's the true value of what you're learning, and the sort of the accountability that you get from it and all these sorts of things, right? So the $100 is kind of just like an arbitrary random number that is such a good deal for the people that want it, but then you're not telling anyone to buy it. So I really think like it's being, and that's why we're so open, is like just sharing this playbook, building, but really it just goes back to like build that audience, build that trust, find your community wherever they are, which is, Reddit, Pinterest, etc. Build up that email list, build up that blog, and then, put together all that content and then sell it. A lot of people, even do it over time. Like they release a chapter a week and they're like, hey, by the way, I'm just going to update the PDF every week, and so you can buy it now. And by the way, every time
it's like an incremental,
it goes.
It doesn't feel overwhelming. Yeah.
Because a lot of people, creators, they just like, it's too much. A 175 page book is too much. 175 pages is actually not a lot. Like you could write that in a month, right? Like you could write, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages a day. Like that's a month. You'll have 175 pages. So it's like, there's images and blah, 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 right? And so I think a lot of people, they just get overwhelmed. It's just too much. And so a lot of it is just breaking it down. And it's always just like build an audience first, worry about that, and then start worrying about this other stuff. And then, it can go forever. Like I had a conversation with someone today who's like messing around with Facebook ads for his digital products. So it's like basically 100% gross margin. And he's spending over a full-time living on Facebook and Instagram ads, just messing around with, because he literally makes all his money back. Just he's figured it out. Facebook's so good and magical at sort of the retargeting and everything. And he's like, you could just spend years just getting into that, right? So it gets more complex as much as you want it to be. But even something as simple as like build an audience on Twitter, write Medium posts, start a blog, start a newsletter, and then, sell an ebook to them, is enough to make a living. It's just really how deep do you want to go, right? We have people that make millions of dollars a year on Gumroad, several of them now. And, they've just decided to like, this is a business. Now they have employees, like you can get just like YouTube productions, right? Like you can get more intense. Like there are huge production studios now that like just create YouTube content. So it just depends, and Gumroad is of course growing all the time and adding features. And so like the stuff you'll be able to do and sell on Gumroad is going to get crazier and cooler and better, over time as well. Right. So it's early days. That's the other thing. It's super early. Like we're barely starting to like surface of like empowering creators to make a living. It's just early days, even though 9-year-old company.
Yeah, well, that's the way it works, right? Like that incremental growth of the product as well. And so for people who don't know, so on Gumroad, basically, let's say you've got an ebook or a course, you can charge for that. You can have the facility to people pay what they think it's worth. You can have recurring payments. There's lots of different options. So it is a really great, easy, no-code way to kind of get those sales coming in. You talked about breaking it down into chunks that you can handle. What do you think is the other thing that you hear from creators is that holds them back? Like it's too overwhelming. Is there something else that holds people back? We talk a lot at PepTalkHer about imposter syndrome and feeling like, maybe what would I know to make, money online? Why would people pay me? Is that another barrier, do you think, to people making money online? Yeah,
totally. I mean, a lot of people think that they're not good enough, or they're not qualified, or they're not experts. I mean, that's another reason I feel like I'm so open with the company, is to show people like, look, I'm just me. Like I run a $10 million a year revenue business, but I'm just trying to figure things out. I'm just a normal human that built a thing that grew over 9 years. It took a long time. And I think most people are like this. I had a tweet a few months ago that was like, basically like one of the best things you can do is to meet your heroes. You will be disappointed. And therefore you will have less, basically, right? Because you'll realize that they're just human beings that like work really hard and have discipline and like hit snooze and get up in the morning and, like it just work. Like there's not, I don't know, at least I had this idea that like, people that could code and work at Google were like these super genius people. And
they had like a miracle formula for success or something.
Yeah. They're like savanti and blah, blah, blah. And, but like not, I mean, there's some of them, sure. But like the vast majority of them are just normal people that have a job and they do it, and so the same thing goes with musicians and actors and filmmakers and directors. It's just like a lot of work, a lot of iteration, a lot of feedback loops. You know, like I think a lot of people, they take their first draft, right, and they read Harry Potter or something. They're like, this is amazing. I could never write this. And it's like, of course you can't write this. No one can write this. No one wrote this. Like J.K. Rowling did not write Harry Potter. She wrote a draft of Harry Potter and then gave it to people, and they gave her feedback, and she made it better. And then she gave it to her agent.
Fixed it.
It took her 7 to whatever years, right? And like dozens of people helped make that thing better and better and better. And so when you're, especially near the end, maybe the first, second book is a few people, but you know, as the impact and the scale of it increases, like tons of people are looking at that stuff. And you can go find early drafts of this stuff, and it's not nearly as good as what comes out. And that's not a ding on her at all. That's just saying, like, look, we're all human. Like, we're all, you know, I can watch a great movie and think, wow, that's like the best thing I've ever seen. But, you know, I could never make anything like Parasite. This is amazing. But, like, guess what? Like, that's not the first time they shot that movie, right? Like, they've worked on this project for a long time. And they've worked up to it, too, right? It takes – people often look at the best work and they're like, I want to make that. But it's like, go watch the filmmaker's first things, right? Like, go watch his first couple movies. They're not that good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of weird and broken and plot holes, and like every so often you hit something perfectly. It's the perfect project, a perfect time for the perfect director, but often it's not. And so that just comes through doing. Like it comes through. Like I think a lot of people, they're waiting for the right moment, and like that's not going to come. Like the right moment comes by like you doing things, and then all of it. Like eventually you realize like that there are no moments. That it's just like people working. It's not like someone was waiting for like lightning to strike. It's like
one foot in front of another every day.
Yeah, and it's a compounding thing, right? So it looks like this. Like this is what Gumroad's growth looks like. This is what coronavirus looks like. This is what compounding growth looks like. And what it means is like when you're up here, when you see people up here, you're like, there's no way I could take a staircase all the way up there. But it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. That's not how it works. It looks like this. And when you zoom in on that, it still looks like this. And like this looks like this. You know, that's what exponential growth looks like. And so just like Gumroad's growth has always kind of looked like this, but now when you look at Gumroad, it's like, wow, you did no volume back then. It's like, well, actually back then I looked like this too. It's just the numbers were a lot smaller, you know? So just like I think a skill is similar, where you look at this master painting and you can't imagine that, but it's like, well, that person has painted 10,000 different paintings to work up to that. You know, that person had to learn how to paint trees and paint faces and paint this and that. And that, like there's so much work that goes into this stuff. And so I think sometimes, especially with the internet, people like to, I think there's this assumption that maybe it's just like someone on their laptop, like writing a book and it's amazing. And it's like, no, that's just not what happens. There's a lot more that goes into it. It's not just like a musician in a studio or whatever. Like there's more work that goes into this stuff. So I think anyways, sort of long answer, but yeah, I think imposter syndrome is super real. I think everyone feels that. I think it's good to feel that, because if you don't feel that, you might be insane. And every creator I've ever talked to, every successful creator is always like, I cannot believe that I was able to do this. Like no one has been like, oh yeah, I totally knew I was going to make $300,000 a year selling digital files to people on the internet that I don't know. No one, like that wasn't even a thing you could do 10 years ago, right? Or 15 years ago or whatever. So it is literally unbelievable. And that's why I think everyone kind of feels like they shouldn't be able to do it. But the truth is, so many people feel like they shouldn't, that they don't. And so if you do, there's plenty of space for you. There's no problem. Like there's so many people just literally waiting to give you money. You just have to find them and then make something that they want to give you money for. You know, and
make it easy for them to give you that money. I couldn't agree more. And it's such an amazing time to be able to make money online. And also, I think there's a lot of people right now who are thinking more strategically about their different revenue streams and not wanting to be in a situation where they're beholden to an employer necessarily. So if that's you and you're watching, we would really encourage you to take the step, check out Gumroad. It's an amazing product, super easy to use. Sahil, thank you so much for joining us. We're really grateful to have you on our Daily Power Pep Talk, and loving all the transparency of your business on Twitter as well, sharing your figures, your growth rates. Thank you. I've learned a lot from you, and I'm sure the PepTalkHer community will as well. We really appreciate your time.